Welcome to the city, part 2. Hey guys, and welcome to Phlearn. My name is Aaron Nace, and you can find me on the all-new redesigned Phlearn.com, where we make learning Photoshop and photography fun. This is part 2 of a 2-part series on photoshopping together our image, the city. And if you haven't checked it out, be sure to check out our behind the scenes video where we show you guys how we actually photograph this and talk about getting the lighting right and shooting for a composite and basically taking you behind the scenes in everything we did to make these photographs. And in part 1 of the Photoshop episode, we showed you guys how to create the background as well as a custom brush that you can make to make snow in Photoshop. And today we're gonna be taking our subject, which is me, and we're putting into the image, and then we're gonna show you how to create some more snow up front. We're gonna blend everything together to kind of bring the image to like basically stylize it, and then I'm gonna show you some really cool things you can do with text as well as create effects on those texts. All right, so here's our background image we created in the first part of this series, and I'm gonna go ahead and open up the image of the subject, which in this case is actually just me. So we're gonna go ahead and open this up. Now to save a little time, I've already cut myself out of the background, but we're gonna show you guys how to do that. So this is basically, I'll shift click on the layer mask, and that's basically already done. So if you're photographing someone on green screen, you can see I've rotated this image just a little bit, but if you're photographing someone on green screen, it's super simple to cut them out of the background. All you have to do is click on the layer that they're actually, photographed on, and we're gonna go up here to select, and I'm gonna go down here to color range. So select and then color range. And basically, if you lit your background relatively consistent, so it's like this relatively about the same green from left to the right, you can just click right here on the green backdrop. Now you can see there's a little bit of a different color right down here on the paper. So we're just gonna hit this plus eyedropper, and we're gonna click that. There we go, and we're gonna click this plus up there as well. And then we can bring our fuzziness. The idea is to bring your fuzziness as low as possible while still including the majority of your image. So just like that, we're gonna hit OK, and it's going to turn that into a selection. So this is exactly what I did. I basically just turned this into a selection, and then once you have that selection, you can load that into your layer mask. So we're gonna shift click, and there is our image cut out from the background. Now we're gonna go ahead and move this from this document over into our background. So let's just use our move tool. I'm gonna hold the shift key and click and drag from one image into another, and then we're gonna go ahead and close this out. All right, we're gonna hit F to full screen. I'm gonna group this with itself, and we're gonna call this subject. Okay, now in the first part of the series, you'll remember we actually showed you how to create clipping masks. So if you haven't created a clipping mask, make sure to go back to the first part of the series. But if you have, we're gonna keep on moving forward. The first thing what I need to do, because I photographed my subject, which is me again, on a green backdrop, you're gonna get a lot of the time what's called fringing. You're gonna get a little bit of green, especially in like areas like hair, it's gonna show up. It's actually not a huge deal. There's a really great way you can actually just completely reduce this green. So we're gonna make a new layer above our subject. I'm gonna go to hue/saturation. And hit Option Command G, and that's going to clip this layer. So any change that I make here on my hue saturation, it's only going to affect our subject, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring this, let's go ahead and get that back to 0. I'm going to bring my saturation all the way up so I can kind of see, first I need to change my color mode. So I basically need a way to isolate these greens because I want to change these greens and just desaturate them. Basically just take the green out of the green. So right here, I'm going to click on greens. So from master, we're going to go down to greens. And now to make sure I'm selecting the right color range, I'm just going to bring the saturation all the way up so I can see a little bit more what I'm doing, right? This helps me just identify what's actually going on. And I want to actually take my slider here, and I want to make this a little bit larger. So we're going to click right here and kind of feather this slider over. And as you see that I do it, it's just including more and more green. That's the idea. And if I keep going, it'll start including some reds in my face and things like that. The idea here is you want to move this slider around so it's including as much as possible of the greens without starting to really affect your other colors. And right about here, you can see that's basically over here, it's affecting the blues that are in my jacket. Here it's affecting the red that's in my face and my hair. And right over here, it's affecting basically just the greens and a little bit of reflected green. So you'll see that, like there's gonna be a little bit of green here in the jacket. this is all being reflected from the background that's actually behind me, which is really cool. That's how light works, it just kind of bounces around. So now that we see what we're doing using our saturation, basically all the way bumped up, this is what it would look like without a hue saturation adjustment layer. And now I'm just going to take my saturation and lower it down. So what it did is it basically, down here I was able to target those greens, and now all I did was take the green out. I brought the saturation down. Now if I wanted to take those greens and I wanted to make them more on the blue side, I could do that. More on the red side, I could do that as well. But since I targeted just that color range, I'm able to do anything that I want. So we're going to bring this down to 0, the hue, so we don't need to change that. We're going to bring our saturation down to -100, which just brings all the color out of the green, making it grayscale, which blends perfectly with my image. So you can see all that green fringing was taken out really quickly, really easily. All right, there we go. So we're looking really good so far. The next thing we're going to do, and there's some more stylization I want to do on my subject, but before I do that, I want to get our composition looking good. So we're going to make a new layer. I'm going to hit Command or Control G with this again, and we're going to call this foreground snow. So we already had some background snow groups, and we're going to create this foreground snow. Now, in the first part of this series, we showed you guys how to make that custom brush that actually we're going to be using to make some snow. So if you haven't checked it out, be sure to do so, and you can actually download this custom brush on Phlearn.com for this episode and for part 1. So I'm going to just use our brush tool. I'm going to right click, and we're going to go down to our custom brush that basically we made for this tutorial. And now I'm just going to start painting snow on top of my image. So this is the snow that we want to be, showing up in front of the subject there. All right, there we go. One layer of snow, looks pretty good. We're going to lower the opacity. Let's make a new layer, and I'm going to bring my brush. Now we're going to go super large with this brush, and I'm going to see if I can get some really large snowflakes in here. All right, let's just see about doing that again. Go even larger with the brush. All right, there we go. That looks pretty good. And basically with this stuff, since we're just creating this, pretty much on the fly, I'm okay just grabbing like the eraser tool and kind of just erasing some of this away if we don't need it. The idea here is you want to create a lot of depth. You want to have basically snow. If we can see, I'm going to turn off all my snow. So this is all done in layers. Background snow, this is done, it's very, very small. We did that in episode 1. Then we brought some more snow, and then here in the foreground, we've got even more snow. So this is, I'm just kind of adding the snow. It's totally random. You can do this however you'd like. Okay, so now that we've got the snow, this image is really starting to look complete. Let's just go ahead. You know what? That snow on the top left, I don't really like that. So I'm going to grab my eraser tool, and I'm going to erase that piece of snow. Okay, let's go back to our subject and kind of see some of the things that we want to do to make it look a little bit more gritty. We want to give it like that cool Sin City style. So here we go, our subject. I'm going to grab another hue saturation adjustment layer, Option Command G to clip that, and I'm going to bring my saturation down to 0. Because this jacket that I'm wearing, it's actually slightly blue. It's hard to tell here, but it is, you can see here, slightly blue. And I've just got blue jeans on as well, right? So I'm going to take the color out of those areas. So with this layer mask, basically, I don't want this to show up where my skin is. So I'm just going to paint with my brush tool. We're going to switch back to a regular brush now. We don't need to paint with our snow brush. And we're going to paint black on the layer mask, basically over top of anywhere that my skin is showing through. So the jeans and everything like that, we're going to keep all that black. That's just going to help us really pull off the style of basically Sin City, which this is inspired by. And we're calling it The City. So there. Basically, I'm trying to make it my own. All right. There we go. So basically, we were able to desaturate all that, and now we just have color on my face and on my hands. I'm also going to go ahead and darken down a couple areas, like my jeans. So let's go ahead and grab a curves adjustment layer. Option Command G, again, is going to clip this. So clipping masks are really helpful with composites because you can have any of these layers affect only one part of the image or another one. And you don't have to worry about layer masking over and over and over again. You can just create one layer mask like we did on our subject here, and I can just use it over and over again. All right, that looks pretty good. Now the next thing I want to do, we talked about how important creating a rim light was when we actually went through the photography process, that light that's kind of like all around me. And now I want to really kind of like bring that up a little bit more in brightness because I'm losing it just a little bit. And I think I'm going to make some of this snow a little bit less visible, especially the snow that's kind of covering me. So let's put a layer mask on that. There we go. And I'll just make the snow a little bit less visible. There we go. Because we do, I mean, we wanted to, you still want to be able to see what's going on in your image, even though we've got this snow. You still want to be able to see like, oh, okay, that's what I'm supposed to be looking at. All right, so let's go ahead and bring up the brights in the jacket. We want to like kind of make that rim light even more powerful. We want to bring that effect up. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to grab an adjustment layer. We're going to go up to curves again. Option Command G is going to clip that. And then we're going to click on our white point, and I'm just going to click here and drag this from the right to the left till I get something that, you know, I don't want to go too far. It's going to start to really degrade my quality. So somewhere right about here looks pretty good. There we go. That just makes our lights lighter. And what we're going to do is hit Command I on the layer mask there, and I'm just going to paint white here on my layer mask. So Command I just makes it black, makes the layer mask black. It inverts your layer mask. And now I'm just painting white on the layer mask. There we go. And let's go in here and little details like this. So I'm obviously doing like a relatively quick version of this, right? This is just for a Photoshop free tutorial, but when you're actually editing images like this, you know, for a client or, you know, let's say this is something that was going to be in your portfolio, spend a little bit more time on this. I want to show you guys how to basically get everything done, and then you can get in there and fine-tune everything when it's time for you to edit your images. All right, that looks cool on the gun, and you can see it's not a real gun. There's a let's just zoom in there. There's a little tip there, which given with this hue saturation adjustment layer, we made that tip not show up. The next thing I'm going to do to really make sure it doesn't show up, I'm going to grab my brush tool, hold Alt or Option and sample this color, and I'm just going to paint black right over top of this. This is another great thing about working in black and white. It's super easy to do this sort of thing. All right, there we go. And now I'm going to grab the clone stamp tool, S for the clone stamp tool. I'm going to hold Alt or Option to sample right here, and we're going to just paint this in right over here. There we go. So from fake gun to real-ish gun. Looking good. And you know what? I'm going to make the gun a little bit brighter because I think it could be a little bit brighter. So grab my curves adjustment layer again. Bring this from the white point up, and you can bring your black point up as well to give it a little more contrast. I just want to make sure that the gun, because it is black, you know, in a black and white image, I want to make sure that it's a detail that doesn't get lost. So I'm really bringing up the contrast on that just to make sure that it is something that actually pulls your eye. So there's the before and the after with that. All right, this is looking great. Now, at this point, you can do quite a bit. Let's just lower the opacity of some of the snow in the foreground here. Some of the things in the background, we can totally start to work with what's going on behind me as well. So between my subject and the background, what we're going to do is I'm going to create a new layer here, and we're going to group that with itself. All right, and we're just going to call this background effects. Now with this, I'm going to use some like curves adjustment layers. I'm going to create some black and some white, and I really just want to help, first of all, me blend in with the background a little bit better, make sure the black background is actually doing what I want, and I want to make sure that I can brighten areas up if I need to kind of draw attention to my subject. So what we're going to do, let's just grab a regular brush tool, and I'm going to paint black right here on the background. There we go, just a little bit, and that's going to help darken this down, including some of the snow, because you can see I'm painting over top some of those snow layers. All right, so it's going to help draw attention more directly into the subject. Next thing we're going to do, I'm going to grab a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to take my midpoint here and really drag it up. Let's hit Command I on that layer mask, and then we're going to paint white right over top in these areas here. That's just going to kind of help give a little bit more of a glow around the subject, and it's going to help to draw attention right here to the subject as well. All right, then I'm going to create another layer, and this time I'm going to paint white at like 10 or 20%. There we go. And I'm just going to give even more of a glow. And I'm kind of taking a cue, like for all these images, I was actually, looking at the original Sin City movie poster, and the subjects have a little bit of a glow around them. So when you're reproducing something, kind of try to like keep all these things in mind, and that's basically what's going to help you out in making something look like it's actually done in the original. So little details like this, let's just turn that off and on. You can see that took almost no time, but it really changes how the image actually looks. And I'm not looking down here as much, I'm looking more on the top of my subject, and it really does seem like I'm more separated out from the background, which is what we want. All right, so there are a couple more effects that I want to do just to make sure the subject really does kind of look like he's integrated into the image. And one of those things, I'm actually going to take a duplicate of the sky and make it look like clouds are in front of me. So with this, we're going to go down to our sky group. It's so nice staying nice and organized with these different groups. And I'm going to hit Command J on this sky layer, which is actually going to just duplicate that layer, and we're going to bring this in front of the subject. All right, let's hit Command G to group this with itself. We'll call this foreground clouds. Okay, now I'm going to have to hit Shift Command U. That's going to desaturate this layer. Okay, and I want to change this layer from normal down here either to lighten or to screen. Either of these will work. We're going to change this to screen. Now, I'm also going to run a levels adjustment layer on this because a little bit too much of this is visible. It looks like fog, and that's cool, or smoke, whatever, but it's just too much. I'm going to hit Command or Control L, which is going to bring up the levels. And now I'm just going to make my darks a little bit darker, which is going to help the lights show through and the darks just kind of stay how they were. All right, sorry. It's going to make the darks invisible because that's what a screen blending mode does. So let's hit OK there, and you can see there's the before and the after. So I didn't change anything with my blending mode or the opacity. What I did is I made my darks darker, and that just helped the lights to actually show through because that's what the screen blending mode does. All right, there we go. And we've got some foreground clouds in front of me now. I can lower the opacity of that if I want a little bit. All right, in this background effects, I'm going to make this building back here to the left. We're just going to make that a little less visible. Really, really cool. So the next thing we're going to do is choose our font. And I was able to actually download the actual Sin City font. Just type in Sin City font on Google and you'll be able to find it as well. So we're going to type in Sin, here we go, and this is our font. So Sin City font, and let's go ahead and bring our type just a little bit larger. All right, and we're getting there. There are a couple more things that I want to do. I'm going to hit Command or Control J on this font group, and we're going to call this, just double click there. Let's go ahead and bring our sizing quite a bit lower, and we're going to call this Phlearn. Oh, changed my font again. Let's just hit Escape. I'm going to duplicate that again because it's not supposed to change our font. All right. Phlearn Presents, and we're going to go ahead and make that way, way smaller. Because what I'm actually going to do in just a second is I'm going to warp this font. There we go. We're going to warp it to actually make it look like it's kind of at an angle. So this font is going to be white. There we go. And again, I'm just basically taking a cue from the original poster. I'm not creating, all this stuff straight out of my head as we're going along. Okay, now the next thing I want to do, let's go ahead and zoom in here. We're going to add a drop shadow, and it's just going to give the font like a little bit of a way to kind of stand out from the background. So let's double click here on the city. We're going to go over here to drop shadow. Okay, we're going to change our angle. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and bring my distance up. Let's bring our opacity up as well. So that's just going to help the font, there we go, just kind of stand out from the background. And if you want to duplicate a layer effect from one layer to another one, just hold the Alt or the Option key and click on this FX and drag it. So Alt or Option, FX, click and drag, and there we go. We can see that's on the other layer now as well. All right, let's go ahead and this entire text group, what I'm going to do is hit Command T, that's going to bring up the transform, and I'm going to hold down the Control or the Command key, and we're going to click right over here and kind of bring this up in that way. It's kind of going to give it that there we go, really cool. It's going to give it this, the actual comic book style writing. All right, That looks cool. Now this Phlearn Presents, I'm actually gonna duplicate that, so we're gonna hit Command J on there, and then I'm gonna do like a little bit of a movie credits. So we're gonna do like Photoshop tutorial. I'm gonna hit Command J again to duplicate that, and we're just going to write my name now, because that's who did the Photoshop tutorial. All right, let's go ahead and make the font a little bit bigger here. All right, this Photoshop tutorial, I'm going to change the text color to like a light gray. All right, there we go. And because all this, let's go ahead and scale that down a little bit as well. Because all this was done basically as duplicates of our original layer, I don't have to retransform every single time. It's not going to start writing my text out, horizontally like it would, because I'm duplicating already the effects that were there. So that's a lot better than just like, starting to type something out again and then, trying to match that like same warp by like hitting Command T and trying to do it again. All you have to do is duplicate the original text and you're good to go. All right, let's see what we got here. This looks so cool. All right, there's one more thing that I want to do, and that's to add a little bit of like grit to the subject. So we're going to go ahead and minimize that. We're going to go ahead and, you know what, we're going to turn some of these layers off. All right, so this time we're going to have just my subject visible, and we're going to make what's called a stamp visible layer. It just makes a copy of everything you see, and in this case, the only thing you see is me. So we're going to make a new layer. Shift Option Command E is going to make a stamp visible layer. And we're going to use this to sharpen the image. So I'm going to hit Shift Command U to desaturate, because if you have color when you sharpen, it's going to sharpen your colors as well, and oftentimes it'll mess up your colors. So now we're going to change this to a linear light, and I'm going to go to Filter, Other, and then here to High Pass. And we have so many episodes on sharpening as well. And we also have some wonderful episodes on cutting your subject out of the background. So in case you missed that or you want to go in more detail, we're going to put a link here on the screen, or also in a comment down below where you can find out how to do a really great job cutting your subject out. All right, there we go. And I'm going to bring this radius up a little bit higher than I would normally bring it, just because this is kind of like a gritty type of image, and this is exactly what we want. So we're going to clip that to our subject as well, and you can see how this just kind of like adds a bit of sharpening to the subject. All right, let's go ahead, and now we're going to build this image all the way from scratch. So here we go. This is our background sky. We have some background snow on here. We have the city, and this is also turning our image black and white. And you remember, we're using clipping masks all along the way to actually make the city. This is what it looks like when it first came in. And we're using these clipping masks to make the city appear exactly how we want. More background snow. We've got some background effects here. Our subject, the foreground clouds. That's a cool effect. The foreground snow, and then our text. So any of these things, like if you wanted, the foreground snow, if you're like, you know what, I like it, but there's too much snow in front of the subject, you can take this entire group, you could layer mask it, and you could paint black on the layer mask and just decide, you know what, I don't want that much snow here in front of the subject. Or you can take any of these out, and you can move them at any point in time too. So if I want to move my subject here in the image, I'm at liberty to do that any time along the process. If I don't want a city, I decide I'm going to take the city out, I can take the city out, and we've got a completely different image. And this is the wonderful part about working with a composite and shooting on a green screen. So we can create amazing images just like this one. Guys, thanks so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed learning how to create a Sin City inspired image, all the way from the beginning photo shoot to where we showed you how to shoot on a green screen, set up all the lighting, into section 1 where we're talking about the Photoshop, creating the background, getting the city and the clouds right, and showing you how to create that cool custom brush for the snow. And then here in section 2 where we brought our subject in, we changed our background a little bit more to help add to the subject, and then we brought that text in with that cool drop shadow that really sold it. Thanks again, guys, and if you like what we're doing here at Phlearn, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can receive free videos just like this every single week, just by clicking that subscribe button. And if you have an idea or a question about today's episode, please leave it in a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. And please share Phlearn with your friends. Share Phlearn with your friends. Try saying that 10 times fast. I'd love it. We can grow the community together, and it helps us create the best content and bring it back to you guys. Thanks again, and we'll Phlearn you later. Bye, everyone. On those text. That made sense. On those text. Bam! Thanks so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed learning how to create a Sin City inspired. Hope I recorded everything.